You know I'm back like I never left. Another sprint, another step, another day, another breath. Been chasing dreams, but I never slept. I don't know the rest of the words of that song. Hey, what's that? And welcome back to my channel. My name is D, and today we're going to do another episode of book reviews with a regular dude. We're going to be talking about it's been too long. I'm so rusty. The Fox and the Falcon by Piper CJ. But before we get into all of that, I got to give a quick shout out to my Plus Ultra Don't Fretters, my top tier supporters on Patreon. Lauren, JJ Valdez, Peggy Luhu, and Laughing Cat Dog. Thank you so much for your support. You are helping to ensure I'm able to create content and put it out as frequently as possible, which is like not at all in the last few weeks. Lots going on. It's been hard. But you know, I felt like it was time to come back because I got this email. It's a real email. It's not from YouTube. It's not from my editor, Sunshine. It's from a third party who's supposed to be on my side. And I'm in trouble because I haven't posted in like 5 weeks. And they were like, you got to get your views up. You got to be doing this and that, or we're going to sue your ass for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah, that's real. So I thought to get back into the swing of things, I'd, go back to my roots and talk about a romantasy book. I got some other stuff that I want to talk about, but, I got an algorithm to appease. So here we go. For those of you who don't know this book, The Fox and the Falcon is the second in the No Other God series by Piper CJ. It was preceded by a book called The Deer and the Dragon. I've done a video on that one. I'll link it down below. I don't really know if you need to watch that video or read the book to watch this one. Maybe you do. I don't know. Before I get into this review, I want to give a quick disclaimer. Even though the people who will engage with my content in bad faith are still just going to do that, I feel like I just want to make it real clear that this is about the book. This isn't about the author, any of the controversies that they've found themselves wrapped up in, or the current one, if there is one. I don't know. It seems to happen a lot. I'm going off script, but in the past, I've kind of just stated my opinions and just kind of assume that people would understand that I don't think I'm an authority on literature. I'm not a scholarly dude, my name ain't TJ Henderson. I'm not a smart guy, I'm just out here. I read a book and I'm going to talk about it, share my opinions, but my opinions are entirely subjective. Book reading is subjective. So if you really like this book or whatever, that's good for you. I don't really and in the case of this book, I didn't really like it. I don't think it's good. But if I say yo, this book is bad, I don't want people to think that I'm saying, hey, you're bad for liking it, or you're stupid for liking it, or something like that. My opinions are my opinions, my critiques are my critiques. But if you don't agree, that's fine. I don't care. You don't need to send me a essay telling me that. Stop DMing me on Instagram, weirdos. And also, I know that there might be people who will engage with my video because they don't like the book, or they don't like the author, their works, or them as a person, or as a public figure, whatever. And I'm not really going to entertain people stooping into misogyny, making fun of their appearance or their history before they became an author or anything like that. Because it's just don't do that. That's not cool. I don't even remember how I structure videos. It's been so long and so many things have happened. So many terrible, terrible things. And I refuse to watch my old videos to see. I think it's initial expectations, spoiler-free review, and then the spoiler-free review. That sounds right. That's what we're going to do. Okay, so my initial expectations were pretty fucking low. Lil Jon, East Side Boys, and the Yin Yang Twins low. Wait, no, that's Get Low. Flo Rida and T-Pain low. Jeez, that was embarrassing. This book was kind of overhyped, but in a negative way, if that makes sense. A lot of times when I read a booktok book, I feel like they're overhyped. People say that it's amazing. It made me see God for the first time. It changed my life. And I'm just it's fine to really, really bad most of the time. This one, I was kind of led to believe this was going to be the worst book I've read in my entire life. This is going to be the worst book I read all of 2025. And I really, really didn't like The Deer and the Dragon. And maybe at this point, I've just read too many booktok darlings. Maybe Onyx Storm desensitized me. I don't know. You ever finish a sub from Subway and you're yeah, it wasn't good, but I paid for it. That was kind of my experience. It was yeah, it wasn't good. And honestly, it caught me by surprise a little bit. I would almost say pleasantly surprised, except that this reading experience was still not pleasant. So moving on to the spoiler-free section of this review. This is where I break down the book into 4 aspects: characters, plot, world building, and prose. I talk about those aspects individually without spoiling. So let's start with the characters. Like most romantasy books, the only character that gets characterized is the main character, Marlowe. To be honest, I don't remember what I said about Marlowe in my review of The Deer and the Dragon, but I think in this book, Marlowe feels like a real person, like a really real person with a folklore degree that's really real, and you can look it up. The university has a record of it, haters. Like a real person with 1 million followers on TikTok. Like a really person with... What I'm saying is that Marlowe is a really stylized, embellished self-insert character. Like, I don't know how thick that veil is supposed to be, but it is pretty thin. But yeah, Marlowe is certainly a self-insert character, and I don't think that that's really a problem, personally. I don't know if anybody else has picked this up, like, from, like, BookTok or Bookstagram or BookTube or BookSky? Is that what you call it? I don't know. I'm not on there. But I feel like in bookish conversations that I've been a part of or like watched, self-insert character kind of has this like stigma, like it's a bad thing. But I don't know, like it makes sense to me. Like if you're a writer and you're trying to write the story that you want to exist in the world, which is what I've told my students is your job. Like your job as an artist is to create the art that you want to exist in the world. Then it would kind of make sense that the author would put themselves in that story if they want to, but it makes sense. Like every main character I've ever written for like sketches and short films and books and stuff like that has like some aspect of myself in it. So maybe I'm a bad writer. I don't know. Like right now, my current work in progress is about a failing stand-up comedian. You know what I'm saying? Also, credit is where credit's due. A lot of romantasy main characters are sort of like blank canvas characters so that the reader can project themselves onto the main character and have the edgy shadow boo fall in love with them and thirst after them, and then they're having all this really good, really rough, really violent sex or whatever, and it's crazy. And Marlowe's not that. Like I think that the demographic that really vibes with the author could still like relate to this character and maybe even project themselves onto this character, but there is like distinctive attributes of this character that give her a kind of personality. It's not a good personality, like this character is not likable or compelling at all, but she has a personality. You got to give her that, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if this is intentional, but there's a lot of like conversations in this book where people criticize Marlowe for like, I guess, having her head stuck up her ass. And Marlowe would kind of think about it for a second, but then kind of just be like, whatever, I'm gonna keep doing me. And I don't know if the author is showing like a complete lack of self-awareness with that, or showing an absurd amount of self-awareness. I don't know if that's intentional, like if the author is kind of doing like a Taylor Swift thing, where sort of mythologizing shit that people say about them, which would be kind of interesting if that's what they're doing, for sure. I have no idea. Caliban, like all other edgy shadow boos, doesn't really feel like a character to me. I think in writing him to be very otherworldly, very of another realm, which he is. He's the Prince of Hell. There's nothing really like human or relatable about him for me to like latch onto or even really think of as like a person. Because like in fucking like Becky Chambers' books, most of the characters in those books are not human, but there's still like aspects of their personalities or their characters that like do make them relatable, and it becomes like an interesting way of examining humanity. There isn't really that with Caliban. He's just kind of like the perfect book boyfriend who's like very powerful and very protective and very possessive and very like, you know, if he wasn't good looking, these behaviors would be really creepy and problematic, but because he's such a dreamboat, at one point Marlowe literally thinks she's dreamed him up. It's fine. He's just kind of that, you know, he's just like the perfect book boyfriend. So if that's all he's designed to be, then I suppose the author is successful in that. But again, it's like kind of boring to read. I don't know. I don't really like the romance between these two characters, partly because I just find whenever it's like a centuries or millennia old mythological man falling in love with a young woman, I find that very strange. Like that age, I understand the age gap thing is supposed to signify like power and, oh, like the older guy is kind of cool and powerful and whatever. Let's just exaggerate that to the umpteenth degree. It's still kind of weird to me for sure, and that's part of it. I also just find that like the way these dudes kind of declare their love is like, I think if anybody said that to me in real life, I'd be like, okay, take it easy. And also, again, I totally understand that for some people, they want to read their book talk boyfriends or whatever, but if a guy actually talked like this, they'd run. Good. You should, because that's insane. But also, I feel like because Marlowe thought that she imagined Caliban and thought that he wasn't real, and he was like her imaginary friend her whole life. It's kind of weird that he's been like looking after her since she was a little girl. And also they got down before she confirmed that he was real. Like they would have sex and she just thinks that she's like imagining having sex. Like it's a fantasy, but he knows that it's not a fantasy. And I feel like that makes informed consent kind of muddy, which kind of grosses me out. I was thinking about that while I was reading. I was like, that's kind of sketchy. It makes me a little uncomfortable and it's a little sketchy and it raised my eyebrow a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a fantasy novel. Things are different in fiction. And blah, blah, blah. Shut up. I don't care. Some people say like, I don't want to yuck your yum. And I'm like, well, I can still find it yucky. I'm not like bon appetit. I just don't like it. I think the only other actual character is Fauna. She's like a Norse nymph or whatever who's kind of guiding Marlowe through the spirit realms and whatever. I think this book sets her up to be a really interesting character. Her true name is revealed. Sorry for that mild spoiler. But because this is book 2 in a series, this is mostly just setup, and we have yet to see if this truly pays off in a meaningful, impactful way. One of the things I don't really love about like first-person narration is that the narrators aren't like reliable. Like no narrator is reliable. But going back to Marlowe has like a kind of everybody's against me and I'm always the victim of everyone else's actions sort of way of looking at the world. And so because of that, like some of the characters' intentions, like Fauna's or Caliban's or whomever's, I actually don't know if they're accurate because they're saying like, no, that's not it, or no, there's more to it than that. But Marlowe doesn't want to listen and shit, and that makes it kind of like frustrating. So there's some of that as well. Anyways, moving on to plot. This book is way less chaotic than the first one, and now I'm like kind of bored. Like with the first book, I wasn't bored. I was feeling some other feelings for sure. Like with the first book, I wasn't bored. Yeah, it was all over the place. Everything was kind of happening at once. It was crazy. You could even understand like people saying like, "Oh, I had fun with this book. This series is going to be fun." I cannot fathom having fun reading this one. The first one was like a Little Caesars stuffed crust pepperoni ass book. This one's all crust, no sauce, no cheese. And I'm not smart enough to know this for sure, but I feel like it's become a trend where the second book is all set up. So there's no like really crazy climax for me in this book. Like there is a climax in the story, but it's so short, amounts to nothing. And there's no true like villain in this book, and there are very low stakes. You know, there's a twist at the end that sets up like the third book for sure. But yeah, this book felt kind of dull, which was weird compared to the first one, which was very confusing, overwhelming, and all over the place. Just like me. Moving on to world building. I don't think I have much to say because I don't really understand this world. Like the magic system's very soft. It feels very like kid on a playground type rules. We're just kind of like, oh yeah, I guess this can be a thing now. Oh, this happens now. Yeah, they can do that or whatever. There is some like politicking between pantheons, which is mildly interesting. You've got like 3 different gods of the underworld interacting in a couple chapters, I think. This every religion is right, or every pantheon is real and all the fae and all that stuff is real. It's just so much that I lose interest. Like, okay, here in Canada, we have a flavor of chip called all dressed. I don't really like that. You know, just give me one flavor. At most, sour cream and onion. Not my go-to, by the way. I know people like to judge people for liking food or whatever. Lastly, let's talk about the pros. I'm not a fan of this author's writing style. I feel like it works better in a contemporary setting. This is an urban fantasy as opposed to like a high fantasy. And this isn't specific to Piper CJ, but there are some books that I've read where like the author uses verbiage or slang terms, and they'll call it like Gen Z slang, but really it's just misappropriated AAVE. And they don't even really know what it means. Like, I forget what book I read. It wasn't this one, but there was some other book where they said like no cap, and they don't know the etymology of no cap, which is, from my understanding, an East Coast rap term where like people would say no cap, and they'd raise the brim of their cap so you can look them in the eye to be like, look in my eyes, I'm not lying. I don't think she ever did that. It's just like this kind of writing style reminded me of that, and that's really frustrating. Yeah, this book feels like important to the author, not to me, but it feels like the author really needed to write it. I don't know if anybody needed to read it, but whatever. There's a lot of like commentary about like religion, and even the fact that like the Christian God is like the villain of the series, I think is like heavy-handed. And given that Marlowe is this like stylized, embellished self-insert character, I feel like it's safe to assume that the author is drawing in from like own personal experiences and beliefs, views. I don't know this for sure. I don't know that much about her as a person because I've like never really cared to research her or whatever, but I believe she comes from like a conservative Christian family and is like an ex-evangelical or whatever. Maybe that's not the right term. I don't know. And it's probably pretty relatable to somebody. It made me really uncomfortable. I don't talk about it too much, but I grew up as a Christian. I was a youth pastor for like a second. I'm not a Christian anymore. I don't really believe in anything. I'm not a spiritual dude. I still got a lot of like love and respect for my Christian homies, you know, the ones who aren't actively voting against human rights. But sometimes it feels like a lot of ex-evangelicals, like going from people who believe that anyone who isn't a Christian is like wrong and dirty and a sinner and is going to hell and we should treat them like shit, to believing that anyone who is a Christian is stupid and ignorant and racist and homophobic and transphobic and all this shit. And I'm just like, and it just feels like it's the same kind of attitude from a different perspective. I don't know if y'all heard that text tone. I'm really sorry. Somebody's trying to plan a birthday party right now. And I'm sure this comes off as a little hypocritical because I'm sure I come off as like pretty self-righteous and like opinionated because I like really dig my heels into my points of view when I'm making these videos. And that's partly because I just thought that people who didn't rock with me would just stop watching me if I made it really clear that I'm like, you know, pro-human rights. The themes and the philosophies and the politics of this book, which I don't think I usually get into too much, but like they kind of remind me of when Ricky Gervais was going on a tirade, like making fun of everybody who believes in God, and mixed with Britta from Community being an activist. Okay, now we're getting into the spoilery part of the review. This is the part of the video where I go through the notes that I took while I was reading the book. Chapter 1, some kind of poem about space. Chapter 2, age 20. She hooks up with the star basketball player. All right, okay. And then kicks him out. Caliban visits her and they get down, and Caliban's dick is a pillar of marble. Nice. I'm kind of knee deep in 2 different Piper CJ series. And it is really funny to me that the most beautiful characters in both series are like literally white. Ashy, but you can't see it white. Like everybody sings Mr. Brightside by the Killers white. Like tries a new snack and goes, ooh, these are dangerous white. Anyway, so they're fucking, and she didn't know if it lasted 10 minutes or 2 hours. That's crazy. Each thrust filled her with glitter and starlight. Yeah, that's going to give you that good sleep. Her heart was too pickled in serotonin to ever experience heartbreak. Can serotonin be around the heart? Oh yeah, I never looked that up. Oh, okay, cool. You learn something new every day. Okay, so chapter 3, age 26 with present day. It's been a week since book 1. Fauna goes and finds out demons are being held hostage. Like, Caliban and Azriel, I don't remember. Marlowe's friends call and Fauna talks them into having them over for dinner. Monogamy in this economy was kind of funny. Yeah, Fauna was like trying to bang somebody who's in a relationship or something, and it's kind of funny. Like, or I thought it was at the time. It did remind me of like back when I did a lot more like poetry slam and stuff. I met some people who were poly, and this woman was kind of like hitting on me or whatever, and I said like, oh, like, yo, I'm married. And she was like, yeah, but like how married? And I was like, like pretty fucking married. And then she started making fun of me for being monogamous. I talked about it in my couple to throuple videos, which I'm much more proud of than this one. I'll tell you that right now. I don't think anybody should knock polyamory, but also I feel like I get really annoyed when polyamorous people make fun of monogamous people. I'm like too needy and emotionally unavailable for polyamory. I couldn't do it, okay? Anyway, so chapter 4, they go over there. They're like hanging out, partying. Marlo feels like she was a chocolate chip tucked into bread dough. I don't know what that means. I didn't understand. Sometimes when you're looking for a new metaphor, you come up with something and you realize that a lot of people use the old metaphors because they make sense and they work. Politician who used to be a longtime client of Marlo doxes her for reasons. And this part was confusing because like I was talking to somebody else who was reading this book at the time, and they were like, yeah, that isn't doxing. And I had thought that Marlo had used an alias for her author persona because she's like in the book she's written books, and I thought nobody knew her real name, and then her name that she used when she was a sex worker was also a secret. So I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty shitty. But then the person I was talking to was like, that's not doxing because it's just a pen name and everybody knows this and all of that. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm a little confused. I'm confused is what I'm trying to say. Because like some people are saying that's not doxing. Some people saying that is doxing. Either way, they're talking like, oh, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to you. And I'm like, I mean, it's shitty. It's a shitty thing to do for sure. I feel like you got bigger problems. What with like the man of your literal dreams is being held hostage by ancient gods that want to kill you. So then Dana's like, yo, we're going to kill this. Dana, who the fuck is... Oh, Fauna's like, yo, we're going to kill this dude and meet the Nords now. Flashback to her first TV interview and sex with Caliban. And then in chapter 7, they go to a park to travel to the Nordic realm, and a security guard catches them, and Fauna kills him for maybe being a creep. I don't know if Fauna can read minds or something, and I don't think Marlo knows if Fauna can read minds. But Fauna was like, oh, you were about to ask for a blowjob, and then she just creates a bunch of roots and drags him underground. If he was about to be a creep or about to like threaten them with like, I'm gonna call the police unless you suck my dick, then yeah, kill this fool. But also I have no idea if that's what was gonna happen because he didn't do anything. So I'm like, it was just a lot really fast. I don't even know if I disagree with it. It was just so much so fast. Chapters 8 to 9, they go to the Nord realm. They go to Fauna's friends, one of whom is as intimidating as a blizzard of knives, which, to be fair, would be pretty intimidating. It's also real dumb. Fauna gives Marlo drugged tea and it makes her tell the truth. The abrupt end of my degrees has a sharp silver tone. I wrote a quote down. I have I think it auto-corrected at some point, so I don't actually know what it is, but basically it was like the abrupt end of my degrees, and then it has to be like sentences or words or something. Has a sharp silver tone, like breath in a frozen winter's day, if the breath turned to diamonds in the air. She's tripping balls and she has synesthesia now, and one of Fauna's friends goes to find Marlo's ancestor for help. That the bit with like the silver tone, like breath in a frozen winter's day, if the breath turned to diamonds, it's a lot of like stacking metaphors and stuff. It's a lot of like Stephanie Garber type stuff, and I can't with that kind of writing. Chapter 10 to flashback, chapters 11 to 12. Marlo argues with her ancestor, who calls her privileged in a way that feels very self-unaware for the author, but also weird coming from a century-old woman. Anyways, so they dip, and then the Valkyrie, one of Fauna's friends, hints at Fauna's true name. Chapters 13 to 17, they go to Hemfor Bog to recruit Fenrir. They are attacked by a pack of wolves, and Fauna takes control of them. They go to meet Fenrir. He's a dog. They go to recruit... What the fuck? Man, my notes. They go to Greece to recruit Hades, who goes by Dorian, and Persephone, who goes by Poppy. Poppy warns Marlo to ask Fauna what her true motives are. Fauna doesn't give her real name, but admits that she wants chaos, like the Joker from The Dark Knight. Chapter 18, flashback. Chapters 19 to 20, Fauna brings a message that Marlo is invited to a banquet by the Phoenician gods. They go, and it's a trap. Chapter 21 is another flashback. Chapters 22 to 24, Caliban shows up, and they bang. Nice. My body count is higher than any serial killer's is a funny line. It's not. I did go, so it's like kind of funny, but it's like not super clever. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, it's like sitcom humor. It's like New Girl humor, which is fine. Like New Girl's a funny show. It's not like New Girl humor. It's like a knockoff. Chapter 25 to 26, it's banquet time. Bale is there, and he's very sexy, and that's important. As Ramus is sentenced to 3,000 lashes, and Silas is sentenced to death by combat. Fauna learns that Az's situation is Marlo's fault. 27 to 28, there's more banquets, blah, blah, blah. Dorian and Poppy arrive. They're going to kill Silas with a vampire-type creature called an Estries. Chapter 29, Caliban is mad. Marlo cares about Silas. He gets violent with her and then makes her practice meditating in this big-ass tub. And then Marlo's turned on by the power that he displayed. And this is really toxic. This is very troubling. I don't want to get too much into this, but like in a lot of these books, the edgy shadow boo or the love interest, whatever you want to call them, does exhibit like some pretty like toxic, possessive, borderline abusive or manipulative behaviors. But I think this may be the first time I've read where he's like truly put his hands on the main character. I don't know. I think the Grimbo in Lightlark dueled with Isla, and I know that Fourth Wing they like sparred or whatever, but this is very different where he's just like mad. He's just angry that Marlo feels bad that this angel, Silas, is in this position because of her, and then he like throws her up against a wall really hard, and it's fucked up. Like, this feels like downplaying and glamorizing domestic violence or violence between partners or whatever, and the fact that she's turned on by the power that he displays is also pretty toxic. And I know like some people are like, oh, it's fiction, whatever. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I still don't like it. I still don't like that it's being glamorized or downplayed in this way. And like, obviously, I'm not really worried about like somebody reading this make, oh, so I'm supposed to be turned on when my boyfriend does X, Y, Z. But I do think that I just have a problem with it. I just don't like it. Chapters 30 to 33, fight between Silas and the Estries. Silas almost loses as he was tied up and magically sealed. The Valkyrie stops the fight. Marlo rizzes up the Phoenicians to release Silas, and Az, they're going to go to war with Heaven. Az realizes Heaven has done something to Betty, his human buddy from the first book. Silas takes Marlo through some of her past lives. She realizes that in every lifetime, the Fae tried to influence her to become a sex worker so that she can birth the Antichrist. That's why Fauna keeps introducing her to deities as the Prince's human. Marlo is brought to Betty's shop, where she basically is like, we ain't friends no more because you used me. Also, Fauna is the Norse goddess of chaos and the bringer of Ragnarok, so Marlo is doubly special to bring about the end of the world. Also, Marlo's friends are in danger from Heaven, and her and Silas are homies now. I hope they stay platonic. I can't do another triangle. That's it. Ultimately, this is like a pretty neutral reading experience for me. Like, I didn't like it at all, but it didn't, like, if you think of liking to disliking as a spectrum, I'm like just south of the middle, you know what I'm saying? I feel like it's kind of doing the Nightshade thing where it's slightly better than the first book, which makes it kind of boring. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you to Shade, Cassie, Eden, Desi, Lauren B, and Oliver, my super duper don't fretters. You're helping to ensure I'm able to create this content and put it out as frequently as possible. And I genuinely mean that, like, not just the financial support, but like in this time where I've been kind of gone, the support that the community has offered me has been really meaningful, and I'm super thankful for y'all. If you also want to support the channel, join the club, get in the private Discord server, get some bonus content, you can do all that at patreon.com/dfretter. If not, no worries, but please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. That's really going to help, especially since I've been gone so long. But again, thank you so much for watching. My name is D. Don't fret. I will see you next week. I promise. Let's turn the kitchen into a dance floor. You turn out the lights, I'll play some records. I'll pour us the champagne that we've been saving. Let's cancel our plans and stay in, baby. Kiss me slow like when we were dating. Let's cut loose, this week has been crazy. Turn up the music and the lights down low. We ain't got nowhere else to go. The world fades away when you are close. I don't care, I like it right here. There ain't no need to get dressed up. You rockin' no sweats and no makeup. It's just you and I think that's enough. So I'll text your friends and say we ain't showing up. Kiss me slow like when we were dating. Let's cut loose, this week has been crazy. Monday morning, it's back to work. Suits and ties and collared shirts. Make this moment last 1,000 more. Turn up the music.